If you're using visualization techniques for manifestation, chances are you're doing it wrong. And trying to visualize too much is actually getting you stuck on your goals. In this video, I'm going to break down where visualization techniques work and where they don't work, and what really matters when it comes to manifesting your goals. Check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the simple way to self-realization. So if you want total control of your mind and more happiness and abundance in your life, then you've come to the right place. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. You're going to love what we show you, primarily because it is 100% experiential, meaning you have to believe me, but just try what we show you and see the results that you get. And if you're a regular here, you love the work that we do, and it makes a big difference in your life, then let us know. Hit the like button below. Share your gains, share your comments or any questions that you have down below, and I'll jump in whenever I can and answer those for you. Now, talking about questions, I get questions a lot about using visualization with releasing and how important it is when you're releasing or working on your goals. And I think a lot of people get confused about visualization, primarily because they've heard Lester tell stories about, for example, how he manifested a special body Cadillac that had, was a limited edition, had a special paint job, and he described it as though he could see himself just driving this car down the street, and he could feel it, he could smell it, he could even taste it. It was that close to him. And then, of course, it took about 2 weeks and boom, that specific Cadillac showed up in his life. Somebody called him up and said, Lester, I got this car and I don't really need it anymore. Do you want it? And they gave it to him. And so a lot of us, we hear that story and we think, well, gee, Lester sat there and visualized it and projected that image out into the universe, and that's what manifested it. And what I say is that the way that we assume that the process of how that worked is a little bit backwards. Basically, we're putting the cart in front of the horse. And let me explain. First of all, it's one thing to visualize something specific, like a particular car. All right, so we're going to set that example aside. But let's just say we are working on a goal to have more wealth, more abundance in our life. And we try to visualize something that's a more abstract idea, right? We think that we know what that would look like, but a lot of us really aren't that clear about it. And I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, a good friend of mine attended a releasing retreat that took place in Orlando, Florida. And they held this retreat at this beautiful resort, this huge building and complex, multi-million-dollar resort. And one of the exercises that they did at this retreat was they asked all the participants to visualize themselves as the owner of the resort. Right? They owned the whole property. It was theirs, and they're that rich that they own that place. And so they showed up and they interacted with each other as though they're the owner, so they could play out this part of stepping into this level of abundance. Now, this particular friend of mine has a lot of wealth, and he's hung around a lot of wealthy people. And what he said was he watched everybody at this retreat go around and act out like they owned the resort. And he said the whole exercise was ridiculous because basically what he witnessed was a lot of people doing caricatures of a wealthy person, right? They're like, oh, ha, ha, look at me, look at how wealthy I am, And he said, that's not how wealthy people act, right? That's not where they're coming from. And so these people just have no concept of what it's really like to be wealthy. And because we lack that information, it's like that saying where you cannot solve your problems using the same mind that created the problems. So if you don't have a consciousness of wealth or reality of wealth, you don't really know what it looks like, then sitting on the outside trying to visualize that is often a waste of time. And what really happens is we get stuck trying to figure that out. And we're trying to force ourselves to hold an image that really isn't that appropriate. And the key thing is we end up forgetting a major tenet in releasing. And that is to let go and let God. And also to just drop the mind, drop the thinking mind. And by dropping the thinking mind, what happens is you access a much higher intelligence that will give you those answers that you're looking for, just like that, out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, you just get hit with a flash of inspiration or a flash of know-how. And you're like, where'd that come from? Because it certainly didn't come from your mind. So that's the major problem. When we try to visualize, is that we're using our mind that does not have the information. If it did, we could use it. So for example, some people that use visualization successfully are doing it in areas where they already have some know-how. So somebody who practices basketball, right? They could practice basketball. They already have an experience of what it's like to dribble the ball down the court and stop and do a layup. And so having that experience and really knowing what that feels like, it's already yours. What they could do is they can just do some visualization exercises and they could build their skills legitimately doing it that way. Or even if they haven't practiced, typically they've seen somebody dribble a basketball. So they do have a pretty clear picture of what that looks like. And so they could start to visualize that and get some results. But the thing is whether or not we could really see something clearly used in our mind, or if it's just something that we have no concept of, it's always best to just clear out that mind and let that answer come to us. And I'll give you a personal example. Now, during the time where we were doing a class here a number of years ago called the Money Alchemy course, the teacher who was showing us how to trade, become traders in the market, was somebody who was a professional trader. He actually worked on the floor of the London Futures Exchange. And he knew what that was like. And he knew what professional traders, what that looked like, where they're coming from, how they thought, the decisions that they made, and their consciousness about money and wealth. And he's very familiar with that. But he was suggesting to us, as newbies learning this course, that we should visualize ourselves as professional traders. Now, speaking personally, I have no concept of what it means to be a professional trader. The closest thing that comes to my mind, in my own experience, what I have seen through my own eyes, is just Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off doing those hand gestures while they're visiting the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And so, I had really no clue. So when he suggested visualizing myself as a professional trader, I gave it a shot, but it was like, I don't know, this really isn't helpful. And I just kept doing my work and doing my releasing until one day with enough experience and, more importantly, enough releasing. That was the key, is just doing the releasing. Because every time you release, you empty out more of the mind. It just gets quieter and quieter. And all of a sudden, one day, it just hit me what that looks like. And not only was it a visualization, it was a reality. It was something that I could see demonstrated in front of me. And so I didn't have to work at it. All I had to do is just recognize, oh, that's it. And so getting back to Lester, what I said is, a lot of us, we think that he did the visualization and that is what manifested the goal. And I said that basically in our idea, we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. So what I suggest is Lester, his mind was already quiet. And he just had a very clear picture. He didn't have to work at it. He didn't have to sit there and hold that thought in mind. It just came natural to him to see himself in that car. It was effortless. And that visualization was already a byproduct of the release state he was already in and the decision that he made in the first place to have that car. It was just kind of secondary. And I think you just use it as an example to show how the mind is creative. And so when you get in a nice, clear place, you can hold in mind what you want, and that's exactly what you'll get. So again, the key is don't force it. Don't sit there and try to, hold that thought in mind and do it 10 times in the morning, 12 times in the evening. Just release. Release, release, release. Like I said, the major tenet of releasing is to let go. Get your mind, get your ego out of the way. Really, just surrender yourself to beingness. And allow beingness to bring you the right answer. And so I'll give you a demonstration of how you can get in touch with that beautiful state of beingness. But before we do that, I just want to let you know that if you really want to master the art of manifesting goals, just like Lester Levenson, now's the perfect opportunity because we're about to begin a new 6-week course called the Conscious Creation Master Course. It's a course I do every year at the beginning of the year. It is perhaps the most important and most fundamental advanced course in releasing that really takes Lester's work and allows you to demonstrate your power in the real world. And so I'll put a link to it up here, also in the description below. And it's beginning here this month in January. So check it out and join us for the Conscious Creation Master Course. Now, think about a goal that you have. Maybe it's a goal that you've been working on for a while, something you've been wanting. And take a look to see if you've been trying to figure out how to get that goal. And notice what you're doing when you're trying to figure it out. How's it going to happen? What do I need to do? What do I need to release on? What type of exercises do I need to release on? How often do I need to release on it? How long is it going to take? And on and on and on. What am I doing wrong? I'm not getting results. And all you're doing when you're sitting there trying to figure it out, and oftentimes, you end up doing this same thing while you're trying to visualize that goal, is you're looking in an empty file cabinet for an answer that isn't there. And that's what we do every time we're trying to figure something out. We're looking in an empty file cabinet for an answer that isn't there. But stupidly, we keep going back to that empty file cabinet again and again and again, even though it's empty. And we know it's empty, we keep looking at it over and over and over again. And that's what we do with our mind. It doesn't have the answer that we're looking for. If it did, we would have the goal. But we spin around, we try to figure it out, we're just looking in that empty file cabinet. And so you can recognize that your mind doesn't have an answer. It might have some ideas, but you really don't know. And that goal seems out there somewhere, unattainable at the moment. And that is the information that your mind has for you, is that you don't have it. It's somewhere out there and you don't know how to get it. So every time you go asking your mind, that's what it gives you. Now, how smart is that? And so what we need to do is to stop looking in that mind and look in a better place. And how do we do that? Well, the next step here is letting go of our negativity that's keeping us in this stuck place. So take a look to see if you're disapproving of yourself. Maybe you're getting frustrated with yourself, or maybe you're getting frustrated with the releasing or the goals process. And maybe you've been even beating yourself up over it. Just take a look. Have you? Now, if you've been beating yourself up and getting frustrated, how does that help you get your goal? What does that do for you? Other than lock in another picture in your mind that says, I can't do it. I'm no good. I can never have that goal. No matter what I do, I can't win. So every time you beat yourself up, you just push that goal further away from you. You see that? And who's doing that? Who's doing that beating up of yourself? You are, aren't you? Which, if that's the case, that's good news. Because if you're doing it, then you can make a smart decision now. You can decide to do something different. So, if beating yourself up isn't helping, and you're doing it, now you can make a decision. I'm going to be positive and love myself, or I'm going to be negative and beat myself up. What do you decide? Well, I'm assuming you're deciding to be positive. So get in touch with that disapproval that you have of yourself, or the process that you've been doing, or the frustration. Just get in touch with that, right? When you get frustrated, that's basically just beating yourself up most of the time. And since you're doing it, and it's just a decision, you've decided to do that in the first place, even though you think you don't have any control over it, your mind's making you do it, you're the owner. It's your decision. And now you can decide to let that go. So it's just a simple decision, yes or no. Could you let go of beating yourself up? Just a little bit, not too much, just a little. And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself even more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself even more? And some more. And even more. And some more. And could you let go of disapproving of yourself even more? And some more. And even more. And a little bit more. And see how you feel now. Just notice if you feel a little bit lighter. That's all we're looking for. It's just a lighter feeling. You notice that? Now, could you give yourself a little bit of approval? For no reason, just because. Just because it's whatever day it is today, right? Just because you can. Could you like yourself a little bit? Again, it's just a decision, yes or no. And could you like yourself a little bit more? For no reason, just because. And could you give yourself some more approval? And could you give yourself some more approval? And a little bit more. And could you decide to be happy despite what's going on? Even if you're not getting your goal. Could you love yourself anyway? Why not? It's just a decision, yes or no. And could you give yourself a little bit more approval? And some more. And even more. And even more. And some more. And even more. And notice what you're experiencing now. See if you feel even lighter. And now when you think about that goal, just check to see if it's a little bit more possible to have it now than it was a few moments ago. Notice a difference? Now sometimes you might get a clear answer, a specific answer. Like, wow, where'd that come from? But that's freaking brilliant. We've all experienced that when we got ourselves out of the way. That beingness, that higher intelligence takes over. We call it intuition. We call it inspiration, knowingness, brilliance. But whatever word you use, you have access to that higher intelligence all the time. Or you might just have a subtle sense of, it's more possible. I feel more like I can, more than I did a few moments ago. I certainly feel more positive about it. And that's still coming from the same place. And what that shows you is when you stop listening to that mind, you start accessing a higher intelligence, a universal intelligence that has answers for everything. And the difference between listening to your mind and listening to beingness is that the mind is full of confusion, doubts, problems, I can'ts, judgments, criticisms, and negativity. That mind is a very negative thing. Not a good idea to talk to that thing. But when you talk to beingness, beingness is always coming from a place of clarity. Yes, I can. Oneness with everything. Answers for everything. And all it takes is just letting go of the negativity. That's Lester Levenson's whole method, is just let go of the negativity, and everything that you're looking for becomes obvious to you, self-obvious. You can't help but miss it. And so, even if you just have a little bit more of a sense of I can, just the tiniest bit, if you keep doing this and you keep working on your releasing, that gets bigger and bigger and clearer until you're like, wow, I got the answer. That's it. That's the way it works. It's simple and it's easy, just like Lester says. And so, again, if you want to get to the place where you're releasing and creating your goals becomes simple and easy and consistent, then join us this January for the Conscious Creation Master Course. Again, the link is down below, also right up here. I look forward to seeing you there. Happy releasing.